Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company. And today I'm so thrilled to be talking to Stephen Graham, who is the actor, co-creator, and writer of Adolescence. And in starting out, I wanted to talk about the way in which this project came together because there were so many different interesting elements in that, with you and Philip Baranti, who is the director on the series, being asked to
Barantini.
Barantini. Thank you so much for
Barantini.
correcting me.
That's okay.
But I love that it was the two of you being asked about the idea of creating a TV series that was one shot, like the way that you worked together on Boiling Point. And kind of that was around the time that you were starting to read about certain crimes where the perpetrators were of very young ages. And I was interested in how once Jack Thorne, who's the co-writer on the series, came on board, that kind of really set the foundation and the development of the story that we ultimately have ended up seeing on screen.
Yeah, that's that you've hit the nail on the head there, if I'm honest with you. It's kind of what I had an idea because we were as you say, look, we were approached to make the series, and it was the possibility of maybe focusing on one character over like a period of maybe 8 hours. Um, but I didn't really think there'd be any kind. I did that didn't find that. I didn't find it exciting, really, and it was just kind of what would it be about? How would we? Do you know what I mean? So, and then it was one of these moments where I think musicians say that they're connected to the ether because it's out there, it's in the system somewhere. You just connect to the matrix kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not as if I sat and I thought, right, what can we make this about? It just suddenly hit me. Um, and this concept of with our one shot format, but following the process. Because me and Phil are big fans of 24 Hours in Police Custody as well, which is a program we get in England. It's really great. It's kind of a documentary based crime police drama documentary. But I knew the kind of outline. It was all four episodes. You suddenly hit me at once. Do you know what I mean? I knew what was going to happen roughly within four episodes. I had an idea, a vague idea of what it would be and how it looked. Um, so in that concept, what that then became was kind of like, and and this is a strange analogy, but please go with me for a second. I then break it down as it's kind of like we all became Frankenstein, um, because I had this kind of outline and outlook, and so when I said to Hannah, I really want Jack to write it, she was like, "Well, just phone him then. Just phone Jack and ask him to write it." And I was like, "Do you think so?" And she said, "Yeah, yeah, of course, he'd love to. Come on." So I phoned Jack and pitched it to him. And Jack said, I'll write it if, maybe we could write it together as a collaboration. I was like, oh, wow, okay. So then basically what it is I came up to go back to that Frankenstein analogy. I came up with the body parts and presented them to Jack. Jack injected a spirit, which is because I had like, I was saying mom and dad. And so then Jack gave them the soul and the life. Jack gave them the spirit and gave them that life of kind of Amanda and Eddie and Jamie and created these characters. And then as a collective, every single person involved, all of the actors and the crew, we then injected the soul. And to that, it was then given some kind of life. Do you know what I mean? And kind of what it was we knew straight away. Me and Hannah had a real long conversation before I spoke to Jack. And then the three of us together, and then Phil as well. We all, it was always a very collective process completely. Um, and we knew that by the end of the first episode, we were going to know that he did it. So the question was never, it was never about who done it. It was more of a why. Do you know what I mean? Why did he do it? And that's kind of where it come from. You know that beautiful saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, we wanted to look at that kind of concept, you know what I mean, as well, and say, okay, so maybe we're all slightly accountable in certain ways for what's happening today in many ways. So let's look at the parenting aspect of what we do. Let's look at the educational aspect that has this influence on our kids. Let's look at the government. Let's look at society. Let's look at community. And then the bigger things seem to be as well in a certain way, which is just another piece of the puzzle. When me and you were growing up, we didn't have much access to the internet. Not loads, you know what I mean? Not hugely. Whereas today, it's major. And to an extent, I think if you look at it properly, sometimes It may be parenting our children more than we are. It may be educating our children more than the teachers are. So that's kind of it's a very long answer. I'm sorry about that, but that's kind of where it came about. You know what I mean, and what how it came. So and I don't mean to sound pretentious. It's kind of like, you're a vessel, you're open up to this stuff, and it just kind of came. The idea just kind of came, and then when you've got a wonderful writer like Jack Thorne, who I think writes the human condition beautifully, then then you can, yeah, it kind of just take took on its own life.
And in talking about your character, Eddie, there's something really interesting about this journey that he's going on because he hasn't looked to be someone who's known in the world outside of his community. And his wife says that thing about he never cared when people were laughing at him, if that ever happened. And so he's always had his own sense of self, and that's been his confidence. And suddenly he's being perceived by the world and by his community in a very different way. And so, what was the journey for you that that really took him on in the way that it kind of makes him feel very different in the way that he's perceived in the world?
My idea was always to try and make Eddie the everyman, and to try and make Eddie the possibility of, to try and create the possibility within Eddie of we could all relate somehow in a certain way. And I suppose one of the biggest things for that was for the parents to be, what I wanted Eddie to be was poleaxed from the second he finds out that his son has done it. Because there's that lovely moment as well between the two of them where he says, "Look, tell me, did you do it?" And I know from my own kids, you know what I mean? It's that kind of sense of whatever it is you've done, or whatever it is whatever we have to deal with, we can deal with it if you tell me the truth. As soon as you tell me the truth, then I can move forward. And even in that, when he's given Jamie that option, Jamie still doesn't tell him the truth. So when he goes into that room and he finds out what it is, that then he is just poleaxed completely from that moment on. And the thing with Eddie is he's a hard working man. Do you know what I mean? He provides for the family, and it was also important that Amanda, in my head, is one of the things I said straight away from Jack is Amanda's a hard working mother as well. She's got a really good job. She's like, to me, she works in the furniture department in John Lewis. That's why their house looks nice, and she's got nice bits of furniture, and so they're both professional people who work really hard. And that kind of realizing that maybe they've taken their eye off the ball at some point, but I wanted it to be that Eddie's really tried. And the thing with Eddie is, in his own way and to his own extent, he's broken that spiritual malady from his parents, from his lineage, because he says that his dad took the belt to him and he was beaten, but yet he's never laid a hand on his son, and he's never laid a hand on his wife, and he's never laid a hand on his daughter. Do you know what I mean? He's never done any of those things. Um, and so that's what I really wanted to try and play is this honest, caring, loving to the best of his ability father. Um, and we all have our defects of character. And I think that's one of the great things about doing this process and working with Phil and with Jack the way I did, you know what I mean? Having that ability, all of us as a creative kind of journey that we went on with these characters, each and every one of us creating these characters as we went along. You create the construct of the character, do you know what I mean? So you have that kind of history element of their back life and their backstory, which me and Christine worked on loads with Phil, do you know what I mean, in our discussions. And that's the beauty of it, because you have the script and then you really take the script to pieces. Do you know what I mean? You really get to understand it and you really get to look at the subtext. So you treat it like a play, basically. And it's very rare. It doesn't happen really in television or film that you get to sit around and discuss for a whole week, because that's what we had a whole week working on the script for each particular episode. You know what I mean? You get to sit around a table for the whole week. Well, you sit around a table for a day, and then we're up and we're on set, and so we're walking around the set with our scripts in our hands. Um, and that's kind of where you realize, where you really find the nuance in the relationships. And it was always that kind of trying to treat Eddie as an everyday man. Do you know what I mean? Somebody that we can all relate to. You might see your father in him. You might see your uncle in him. You might see yourself in him. Do you know what I mean? Someone that we can relate to. So that was basically where we started off. That was our starting blocks, really.
I also think with some of what you're describing of that instinct to protect his son at the beginning, plays so much into what we see in your performance throughout that first episode. When the police first burst into the house, it almost feels like Eddie's like, "Wait, are they here for me? What did I do?" Because he
Oh, yeah.
doesn't know. And then it goes into this whole space of just trying to be there for his son and not focusing on his own emotions and trying to just protect him in any way that he can at that point because he hasn't seen the video yet. And so, how did that really shape and form a lot of where you found Eddie throughout that first episode?
You just, because of the construct of the way we film in that one shot, you're completely amazed. So, we know, look, it's there on the script, but also when we're working on it, it was that kind of, I knew straight away if the police are coming through the door, Eddie's going to think it's for him. And what's Eddie's main thing? He hasn't done that. And I think that's what any father would say. Do you know what I mean? Um, and we did a lot of research as well. My cousin works for the police. And so Phil and Ashley went they went out on a reconnaissance mission with him, and we got a lot of information from my cousin. But that was the main question I always asked because I wanted them to come through the door with guns. And I said, would this be feasible? Would this happen? He said, yes, for many reasons. One, because they know he's done it because don't forget, they've seen a tape. So they know he's done it. So before they leave the station, they're all aware that they're going to apprehend the murderer because they know he's killed him. They've seen it. They know it's him. They've done their due diligence. They know for a fact it's him. So they would storm the house with guns because he's a murderer and there could be weapons in the house. But also, what was very interesting, what my cousin said to me, was that the fact that they don't know what's going to happen when they get past that door. So he might have come from a family, you know, and this is no judgment, but he might have come from a family where this kind of thing might be commonplace. So you don't know what you're going to encounter as you come through the door. But then you flip that coin on the other side. Eddie's a moral citizen in many ways. You know what I mean? Pays his taxes, pays it. Got his mortgage, and he's always never been in trouble with it. And he says, and that was the beauty as well. We put that in the script. He's never been in trouble with it. I've never been in one of these places before because that was the other thing we wanted to show that this is not. He doesn't know this world. And so when they come through the door, the immediate response, I think, from me or you, if you think about it honestly, well, we haven't done nothing because we haven't done nothing. Do you know what I mean? So he's already starting on the back foot. And then the beauty of the construct, the way we do it and the way we shoot it, is as Eddie's learning and as Amanda and Amelie's learning, as the family's learning what's happening, so are the audience. So we go on that journey with them, and the camera then becomes from this motion to then we become slightly voyeuristic. Do you know what I mean? So as we follow Eddie, we're with Eddie all the way. And we always wanted Jack came up with that wonderful, where as he gets out of bed, he's wet himself through fear. And I think what that does is that makes an audience have some kind of instant sympathy for this kid. Do you know what I mean? Because we wanted the audience, because that was another keynote, kept saying, want the audience to think there's no way he's done that. It's impossible this kid could have done that. It's impossible. Look at him. There's no way he looks so fragile. He doesn't look like he's capable of doing anything. And so that's what Eddie would be thinking as well. Do you know what I mean? And Manda. So when they see the footage, they're horrified, and we as an audience should be horrified for them, but also for ourselves, thinking, "Wow, there was no way I thought he could have done that." So we get to go on that journey incrementally, but also we get to go on that journey within the time process that we're in it. So you're immersed in it as an actor.
And it's interesting to see the trajectory of Eddie as well, because it feels like he's going through an experience that he's never been through before. He doesn't have a roadmap for it. And so a lot of the emotions are even surprising him or new to him as he's experiencing them. And, even his wife is saying in episode 4, I've never seen you act this way and do these sorts of things. And this isn't like you. And
Yeah.
so when you were looking at the parameters of what that looked like, I was interested in how you found the emotional landscape and the actions, because, seeing him go after the teenage boys that marked his van, he gets physical, but he doesn't pull a punch on him, for example.
Yes, and then that's that kind of thing that we wanted to show as well. Look, all of us teenagers do things, and it frustrates the life out of us often, do you know what I mean? But yeah, to them, it's an innocent, fun thing to do. Or it's like, yeah, well, we know what he's done over there. So they write the nonce on the van, do you know what I mean? They're not thinking of it. They're just thinking that's where that killer lives. And, in their own little heads, they're justified for what they're doing. But then it's the frustration and it's the effect that that has on Eddie because instantly, that's his van. He needs that to get to work. That's his livelihood. Do you know what I mean? This thing is already following him around like an albatross, do you know what I mean, around his neck. So, and the dark, dark shadow that looms over his head. And now it's going to affect his livelihood as well. Do you know what I mean? Going to work, it's just, you can't escape this thing. So when he grabs the young lad, he wants to throttle him. He wants to throttle him, but then he has it. What we want, and it wasn't even an intentional thing. Do you know what I mean? But now that you've said it, it kind of shows the audience that he's capable of putting a stop on it and not acting out completely the way his son has acted out on whatever that may be for him. Do you know what I mean? And he picks the bike up and he throws the bike because of all that anger and frustration that he has inside. Do you know what I mean? And just all you can do then, and I don't, again, I don't mean to sound pretentious, but because it's kind of like a play in the concepts of what we do is we marry both mediums in this format. Do you know what I mean? So we have that live spontaneity and that energy that theatre has, and that kind of that just that energy that brings, and then in the same respect you have the technique of film and television which is naturalistic and minimalistic. Do you know what I mean? And less is more, and nuanced behavior, just a study of human behavior, like I said, Jack writes beautifully. So we marry both of those things together, and what that enables you to do is just go on the journey and just simply be. And in many ways Christine Tramarco was a beautiful dance partner to be with. Do you know what I mean? My mum and Christine's mum were friends when they were young, so I've known her for all of my life. Um, and Amelie was just wonderful as our teenage daughter. Do you know what I mean? So it becomes a nice little triple, and it's basically to me, great acting is listening. It's not about performing; it's about listening. So what that enables you to do is just simply just be present and be in the moment because you have no other choice. You're immersed within this process, and it's just yeah, for an actor, it's a joy. It's an absolute joy. Do you know what I mean? It really is.
There's also so much in their marriage of we see this really solid relationship and two people that really love and care for each other. And you see both of them protecting the other from their emotions and protecting their daughter from their emotions. Episode one, Eddie's trying to keep his emotions undercover for his son. And episode four, he's really doing it for his wife and his daughter. Even that final scene where he sobs into the duvet in his son's bedroom, he's making sure that they can't see him. And what were a lot of the spaces that you found where there was just this huge undercurrent of emotion, but you were very aware of it not seeping out because of that?
I think again, look, and this is a subconscious thing in many ways, and I don't even realize it until I have to explain it or I have to try and find it. And it's finding the words to try and explain the things, the questions that have been answered. But the other day, me and my dad were having a conversation, and I suddenly realized that uh, there's been a few things as a family that we've had to go through and navigate together as a collective. Um, and there's moments that I had looked at and had saw that I'd taken from my dad, um, and how he experienced and how he navigated those certain circumstances. Do you know what I mean? And I could see that then, and also seeing the parts within myself that I had brought to the table, like I said earlier on to Eddie. But there's one of my uncles as well who I really saw within Eddie. And as actors, I think we are like magpies. We take little things from life. I'm a big, if I see a walk at a train station, I'll log it and put it in my Rolodex and file it for later on and go, oh, remember that walk at St. Pancras train station? Where is it? And try and find it and try and embody it. But within the process of this, it was that kind of thing of being strong, trying to like you so beautifully said then that you saw it's that being strong and holding it together, not letting anyone see it, letting it crack occasionally, but then it's them moments of what happens when they're alone. And I know that from my own experiences, do you know what I mean? But also that kind of man that Eddie is. What happens in that moment when the door's shut and it's just him for a second? Do you know what I mean? And he lets it go for a little bit because he's overwhelmed with that emotion that he's been suppressing and trying to keep a lid on. And it's just a little. I think that that's the beauty of the format as well. That's the beauty of the one shot process. Because for me, one of my favorite pieces in the whole thing is in episode 4, where we come out of the van and we come out the van with Christine, and she puts the coat on the hook on the coat hanger, and she herself in that moment. See, that's the moment again when she's alone. In that moment when she's alone, she releases her emotions for a split second and then she puts the lid back on it. And this is about a family who are constantly putting the lid on, do you know what I mean? In them ways, because they've been hit with this destruction and this aftermath of a horrific act that their son has carried out. And you just play and you just allow it to become a part of what you're doing. Really, you're in that state of athletes call it a state of flow, don't they? So you're constantly in that state of flow. Do you know what I mean? And it just little tiny things just impact on you and impact on you as you go through the process.
It's amazing, and I love the way that the rehearsal process was used to really finesse so many of those small details in, even down to that scene at the end of episode 4 where he's in his kid's room by himself, and the fact that during the rehearsal process, Philip was like, "I think I'm going to leave a teddy bear on the duvet," and that turns into that really pivotal moment of just seeing the bear get tucked in and he's apologizing to his son through this bear. And so I wanted to ask about how you really used the rehearsal process to find so many elements of that closing scene in the series because it was so impactful.
Thank you very much. That's it's a lovely, beautiful observation. You use the rehearsal process in the same way that you do, like I said, as rehearsing a play. And you have that freedom to find things. And that's the beauty of the fact that we have that week. We can really dig into the text. We can really have, look, it doesn't, if we can have a conversation for an hour about a particular moment. Do you know what I mean? And we can really dissect it and really begin to understand it. So then when we come to play it, we have that freedom to let it just exist and be what it is. And then, as the same with any kind of, acting in any way, but not acting, being, I think, in the concept of what this is personally. Um, things happen differently all the time. And to the extent of what you see was take 16. There'd been a couple of false starts, but technically, that's the 16th goal of that. Maybe let's say there's four false starts, so maybe the 12th goal for what that is. But what you see is the very last take of the last day of filming. So you can imagine there was a lot of kind of energy going into that take anyway. There was loads, there was a gambit of emotions going into that take. But what was happening through that take in particular is we were kind of, you're in it. It's like, look, let's all get ready, and the whistle's gonna go, and off we go. And like I've said, in that process, you spent so that's the first week, and then the second week you work out the choreography with Matt Lewis, our amazing DOP. I see you have a lot of cameras around you there, so yeah, I'm sure you were blown away by this technical ability of Matt and the team. So our camera team were phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So we spend a week working with Matt and Lee, our other camera operator, because you need two camera operators, and they pass the camera to each other beautifully. I'm sure you may have had a little look at some of the behind the scenes stuff. It's amazing, isn't it? It's
It's
unbelievable.
incredible.
Especially, I mean, look, not only did they attach it to a drone, fly it over the bleeding school in the playing field, land it, take it, catch it, take the camera off and walk around with it. Not only did they do that, but that moment's what I was saying a minute ago, where it's Lee comes in and guides Christine in through the door, and then passes it up, and it's a beautiful kind of fluid sequence as he passes it up, and then Matt takes the camera up. But getting back to that point anyway, so we spend that whole week with the whole crew, and everyone's on the same page, and we're all in it together. Do you know what I mean? Look, I've been very blessed. I've had a, I'm continuing to have a wonderful career. Thank whoever it may be. But in this sense, I've never been the collective energy and collective consciousness and that complete solidarity and togetherness of actor and crew member. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's fluid. It becomes one, and there's no each person is absolutely integral to the piece. Each piece of the jigsaw is integral. Otherwise, we don't have that particular picture. Do you know what I mean? So we were in it, and you can feel there's like moments where it's going, but you're still in it. You're immersed in it. And there was one point where we're in the van, and them two are kind of talking, and Stephen's head comes in and goes, "Oh wow, this is going good. This is a great take." And I'm like, "Get out, get out! Don't just stay in it. No, listen, listen, listen." It's like, "No, but this take's brilliant. Did you feel that bit over there?" And the cup was in the thing, and it's like, Get out." And then you're back in it. And that one of my favorite lines and one of my favorite moments is when we're at the top of the stairs, and Amelie is that beautiful 17-year-old daughter who's very bright, and she's an A-level student. Do you know what I mean? She's gonna go to university, so it shows you that something was being done right in this household because we have the perfect students. We have not the idyllic daughter, but she's a well-rounded, lovely individual. And as she walks downstairs, and I think it's a beautiful piece of writing. It really is. It's Shakespearean in its gravity. But yeah, it's used so colloquially, the colloquialism to it, and the beauty and the rhythm of it is gorgeous. I say to her, how did we make it? And she says, the same way we made him. And it just when she said that, I've always loved that line ever since I read it on the page. But when the way she delivers it this particular time and every other time, it's done something to me. But I think it was because this was the last take, and I was really, and I was immersed, and we were all in it. But this time, it just hit my heart a little bit deeper than it has done before. And so as I went into that door, I had the impact of what she just said and that beautiful language in his head and the impact that has. And it's like, oh shit. And as I open the door, and then as I get in and I turn around and look around the room, what Philip had done was my wife and my children were there that day. And he told them to bring some photographs. So they put photographs along the wardrobe of them as kids and them growing up, and they wrote, "Oh, I'm gonna go what, Eddie?" Sorry, it's a bit silly. And they wrote, "We love you, Dad. We're so proud of you." And it broke me. Do you know what I mean? But I was trying to keep it together, and Eddie's trying to keep it together, and you see that, and that happens for a split second. And it's like, and then it's like, boom, I'm back in as Eddie, and then the whole thing with the teddy bear and stuff. So what I'm saying is, even that last one, that 16th take, there was still something we were finding within it. Do you know what I mean?
It's really beautiful kind of how that was all constructed. And lastly, with everything that you were describing about the process of filming throughout these one takes, one of the beautiful things are you find little moments along the way every single time, and new details, or a mistake can suddenly become something so perfect for a scene as well.
Yeah.
And I know that the idea was like just keep going, but you still had some false starts. What was that space of finding, yeah, like this is a small thing, but we could just play off of it versus those moments where it was actually we need to stop and we need to reset and start this one again?
Well, like the first, for example, within that particular scene, the first one, because it never happened in rehearsal, but the first, I think maybe it was like take two, maybe, or maybe take three or whatever. Taking the water, the bowl out the thing, and the water spills everywhere. Do you know what I mean? What was that take? No, that might have been in the rehearsal process, but just those things, and then adding to that and making that as natural as possible every single time. But then even the deliveries in certain parts would be different because it's like life. No two moments are exactly the same, and no two takes were ever the same. Do you know what I mean? At all. And that was kind of the beauty of it. But again, it's because you immerse yourself within that process of how it works, And you basically, you have the trust of everybody on set. You have the confidence of everybody on set, and you have the faith and the belief of everyone that you're about to do this with, and you just jump off a cliff and just see what happens. Do you know what I mean?
It's such an incredible show, and the response to it already is so warranted, and you've all done such a phenomenal job. So congratulations on what is hands down, I know already one of the best things I'm going to watch this entire year. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.